So earlier I mentioned about making sure you be intentional about setting aside quiet time, right? And a lot of times, and I've said it, oh, I'm so busy. I don't have enough time during the day. And where do I squeeze this in? How much more does somebody want from me, right? So here's two tips about being for real about making the intentionality about it, because we will find other ways to be distracted instead of doing exactly what we're supposed to do. So, step one, put this thing down. If you really track and you really see how much time you're wasting by scrolling, that's the quiet time you could have gave right there. Because quiet time, I never said quiet time had to be 8 hours. I never said quiet time had to be 12 hours. Quiet time could be a concentrated and concerted 15 minutes. But that 15 minutes can do your soul so much good when you set it aside. Another thing is be accountable to yourself and the truth that you need to speak to yourself when you're doing it. We can be easily distracted by any and everything. It could be a bird, it could be a text, it can be a song, it could be whatever. But be self accountable about making sure that you designate the time for you. So I also just referenced about self accountability, right? And I know that's hard because let's just talk about it. Being disciplined is not sometimes our friend, right? And then also holding ourselves accountable to the things that we want. Oh, we don't like it at all. However, it's needed. And here's the reason why. When you're doing that, you become disciplined, but also you set boundaries for yourself. And those are two things that you always need for accountability and self accountability. Because we're quick to hold other people accountable for the things that they did or didn't do, but then we give ourselves all kind of excuses. So when I'm saying be self accountable to setting aside time and being truthful and transparent with yourself, right? Stop the lies. Tell the truth about your story that you have in your head versus really who you are. But then also establish the community. And I know a lot of people will be like, ugh, I got to trust somebody. Yes. But here's the thing, you have to trust yourself first to know when someone is actually good for you. So, what does that mean by trusting yourself first? That means that when we start reading the word and we hear about wisdom and discernment, right? That's where it comes from. Because as long as we can read the word and we apply it to ourselves and we trust the reassurances that God has told us about who we are and whose we are, then we can always trust that He will bring people who display the fruits of the Spirit into our lives, right? And if you go and you research this fruits of the Spirit, if you don't know what chapter they are, go ahead and look it up. That'll be your first foray into reading. However, when he brings it in, you already know that there's nothing wrong with people with that. They're all good people. They're all grace people. They're all God people. So making sure that you have the community, right? But then also that you are trusting yourself, that God has given you the wisdom and the discernment to apply to choose the community that you have, but also solidifying it with prayer because there are times where God will send certain people into your lives for a certain season to give you upliftment, encouragement, new lessons, whatever it is, that some of the old people may not have to be with you in that season. It doesn't mean that they have to be gone. It just means for this task and assignment or wherever you are right now, there's other people that God wants to align you with. And that's perfectly fine. You can have a tribe or a community for this reason and other reasons. So don't think that you always have to end a relationship if a person doesn't go into a season with you. It just means that there is a plan that God has for you, that somebody else is either supposed to walk with you, assist you, uplift you, encourage you, or also just be there as a support system for you, along with the other people who are cheering you on the side. I also talked about the alter ego, right? This is our defense mechanism sometimes, and what we hide behind to push us or to make us feel as if we're strong, even if we're feeling weak. And I always do quotes because there is a definition of weak and there's a definition of strong, and sometimes we misapply it. But also because of the identity that the alter ego takes on, it can be a defense mechanism, it can be a coping skill, it can actually become an idol. It can be what we consider the representative that people say they never want to meet, right? But usually get. It can also be a tool that we use as a way of self sabotaging ourselves. And I kind of work my way back. With the self-sabotage, we create a situation in our minds that happens, and we have a person that's in our lives or opportunity. Because some people just don't feel like, oh, I'm not worthy of success, but they say that they want it, right? So then you work so hard for whatever it is, and you're right. I mean, when I tell you you're right there, you're right there. And then all of a sudden, you just stop doing the work or you give up. Self sabotage. And that could be the alter ego because a part of you is saying, oh, I'm not worthy of success. Or I don't know what it's like to be successful. Nobody has ever showed me this. Also, when we're talking about being in community or relationship with people, and this could be a love relationship, a friend relationship, a mentor mentee relationship, anything of that nature, you get to a certain point where it's developing, and then you get scared and you self sabotage and you ruin it. And sometimes that's the alter ego that comes out. But then also, what we're talking about is an idol. Because sometimes people will refer to themselves as the alter ego in the third person. So if Big John is like, and I'm Big John, and then I'm saying, oh, well, Big John is like this, and I like Big John, and I need to be more like Big John. So every time I go into a meeting, every time I interact, which also runs into being the representative that we talked about, anytime I interact with anyone, I'm taking on this alter ego or pseudo identity, and now that identity, that thing is getting the praise, right? It can become an idol because you're feeling like you're lacking. And then now you're comparing yourself to something that is you, honestly, but you're feeling as if you're not good enough. So now you're always striving to be that thing and please that thing and everything else. And so now does it look like, do you understand what I'm saying? It could become that idol, become idol worship because you're, like I said, you're doing everything to be it, please it. And then also it can also turn into a form of worship. And we don't want that. But also here's the thing. You never really get to know the full you if you are separating yourself. So the full you will likely realize that there's really nothing wrong with you and everything is okay. You've just met people along the way and had situations at some point that told you that whatever was going on, because it didn't ascribe to or meet their standard. And let's be very clear, some people really don't really know who they are. And so they're scrambling to try to figure out who they are. And then they want you to transform and conform to what they want you to be. So somewhere along the way, they told you that your emotional DNA was wrong. It wasn't good enough. It's not lovable, what have you. And now you have always compartmentalized yourself and tried to create or be whatever person A wanted you to be, person B wanted you to be, or person C wanted you to be, with never understanding who you fully are. So when you give a funeral to the alter ego, and you really reconnect with yourself and become the real one thing that you were supposed to be, that's when you can come into alignment with everything that God has for you. So when God says you are fearfully and wonderfully made, when he says, I have known you before you were created in your mother's womb, when he knows how many hairs you had upon your head before you even created, when he counts all your tears and everything else, you can believe it. You can actually believe it because now what you have done is broken up or broken the covenant with the lie that the enemy sent somebody else to give you, that you then came into a covenant and alignment with as well. And you can cast it down, you can rebuke it, you can break it. So when we start talking about these generational curses, those are some of those things too. So understand, and you have the power to do that. But what you have to do is get truthful and transparent with yourself about who you really are and what you really are. And if there's some parts of you that you don't like, okay, work on them. That's why you have people like me, a therapist. Get the help. Confess your sin, confess it. And again, this doesn't have to be in front of the church. This is your trusted community. These are the people who you really know care about you and want the best for you. So to tie and wrap all this up, right? Where does faith exist in all this? That's a really good question because a lot of times people will tell you a lot of different things about faith, but many have many different belief systems about faith, right? Some people will tell you you can't have faith and fear at the same time. Some people say you just got to know what you know. And then sometimes people will be like, "Why believe in anything except the 5 things you can see," which is the senses, the 5 senses, right? Here's my story. I operated and started a business on faith after I heard what God told me to do. This business has expanded into a group practice with 2 locations and growing. The book that I have written, the in between, what to do between the prayer and the promise, is a faith walk. He told me to write this book around this time last year, honestly. Me moving to Houston, faith walk. Every step I take, me even doing like this, is a faith walk. You wanna know why? Because I just believe that I can move my fingers, even though it's a blessing and a miracle that I can do so. Because we all know somebody who can't do something that they either, wanted to do and couldn't, or previously could and can't do anymore. This is all a faith walk. If you wanna drill it down to the Bible, if you really read the Bible, and when I say when you really read the Bible, you'll understand. Some people will say, "Well, I love these characters in the Bible." If I use the word character in the Bible, I don't believe the Bible is real. And here's the reason why. There's characters in books like Wuthering Heights, Scarlet Letter. There's characters in books like I Almost Forgot About You by Terry McMillan. Those are all characters because they're not real. The Bible has real people. They give you real stories and examples and instances of real life, real struggle. When you got people who was bare knuckling it, trying to figure out what am I supposed to be doing here, crying out to God. You have the story of Job, who his life, hello, was nothing but trials for a significant period of time. We had everything, and it was taken as an example of how a man will not give up on God. But then he was also blessed, and he was given double for his trouble. We always use David. And David, listen, David was a man after God's own heart. But guess what? He cried out to God when he was on the run for his whole life, not half of it. When his house got raided and everybody was taken, his wives, his children, everything was taken. And then his mighty men was about to turn on him because their families were taken too. And guess what he did? He had to call on the Lord. The Spirit of the Lord came down and he went after it and got everybody back. We also have people like Rahab, because I'm not leaving the women out. We have Rahab, who was like, I heard about your God, so therefore I'm going to help you. We have people like Sarah, and believe me, I talk about Sarah and faith in my book. Let me tell you, I know, but I had that same thought process about her too. But understanding, if you really read her story, you understand the things that she went through, she had a very hard life. Very hard life. She was betrayed not once but twice by her husband, well, 3 times by her husband. 1 of her own making, 2 because he was afraid. You also have people like Hannah, who cried out to God, who loved God, who served God, who did everything that she was supposed to do. And it literally says in the Bible that God closed her womb. So you understand, when they start identifying things in the Bible, that there is a plan and a purpose for everything that happens. And then how she was blessed, and blessed so greatly with the birth of Samuel. But then after that, she went on to have more and more children. So when we're talking about that faith situation, even now, trying to figure out promoting this book, having conversations with people about business growth, and just even contemplating where I am in life as I journey and try to find my balance again. This is all a faith walk. And I can't do it without having God by my side and leading me through it. Because there are some days, let's be very clear, I don't have it. I don't know the words. I don't know what to pray. I don't know what to say. But he knows it. And so therefore I can at least rely upon him for that. And as I'm fearful about other things, guess what? I can go to him about that too. Because I am a person who has fears, but I also have faith, just like Gideon. And so understand that when somebody else tries to dictate your relationship and what it should look like with God, leave those people alone. Go with God. You got better plans for them than I do. Okay, just go with it. Continue to reach out to God, to cry out to God, to talk to God, even when you feel like He's not saying anything. Believe me, He is talking, and talking is not always verbal. So understand that there are many ways to hear God's voice too. We'll talk about that next.